If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and you are listening to the Delphi case series. This is episode 28, The Search. We're going to go over some interesting details, trying to nail down exactly which areas were searched when, and why there's so much confusion, and why all of these individuals seem to have a really hard time grasping what thermal imaging is. I already did an episode on the thermal imaging drone and how bodies would clearly be picked up if they were there. Some people are still trying to do all this mental gymnastics to, for whatever reason, I don't know, emotional triggering or whatnot, just blind faith in the cult of authority worship because it was reported that they were killed there at that time, that so many of these goofs, they just can't fathom the possibility that human beings can make mistakes. I mean, I don't know why, but whatever, here we are. Obviously, there's plenty of other POIs to go over, plenty of other issues, but I did want to touch on this, including what several Mindshock listeners have brought to my attention, issues that have not been discussed before, as we always do on Mindshock, in typical, comprehensive, logical fashion. A lot of people are triggered by it. A lot of people are just severely deficient in English comprehension, and their Dunning-Kruger is so severe and their ego has got them on too short strings, they can't re-examine their own assumed comprehension level in the English language, which is, of course, what all of these issues are, in them not able to even understand the ideas being presented. But on Mindshock, we are all about getting to the truth in an objective, logical fashion without falling for any of these logical fallacies. As always, if you enjoy the Mindshock podcast, find it interesting, you can help support the podcast, help us get more mind-shocking content out there, keep up awareness in unsolved cases, cold cases, missing persons cases, wrongful convictions, and plenty more. You could donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications. You could also become a YouTube member, help support the channel that way, get access to exclusive streams and chats not available to the public. Like and share the podcast, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. As always, try to at least make sure you are on a first or second grade English comprehension level before flooding the chat, clearly demonstrating you didn't understand what was even presented, because that's been an ongoing issue in the comments. Obviously, Mindshock is a logical podcast, clearly not for a large percentage of the population, and yet they seem to just really want to hang out here anyway. But I mean, I guess that's good for educational purposes regarding psychology and logical fallacies. That is a good thing, so there's plenty to be learned, and those who find Dunning-Kruger stylings amusing, it's also quite hilarious in its own way. But here we are. So first things first, some people hallucinate and pretend that there's definitive evidence that the area where the bodies were found were not searched. Yet there's so much conflicting information and direct testimony that the area was not only specifically searched, but there was also personnel on the ground waving people away from searching that precise area, claiming it was already searched, which is quite strange. Others still just continue to maintain and hallucinate that it was definitely not searched, which is really weird. Let's go to this clip from Delphi Daughters, The Untold Story of Abby and Libby. So this was uploaded on WRTV Indianapolis on their YouTube channel, April 27th, 2017. I actually do not know the air date of this. I don't know if it was aired much earlier, around the same time. Whatever it was, it's on YouTube as of April 27th, 2017. Okay, so what do we have here? 2 minutes and 45 seconds, we have an interesting interview here.
Over 100 people out searching the area last night, walking both sides of the creek bank, 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 both sides of the creek bank.
So this searcher is saying there was over 100 people searching the night of, walking both sides of the creek bed. So let me read that again for all these goofs out there that hallucinate to know for sure that that side of the creek was not searched. This guy, this searcher, volunteer, whoever he is, he's clearly stating that both sides of the creek were walked. Now, obviously, the bodies were not found right along the creek bed, but clearly that area was searched. Now, you can argue how well it was searched until you're blue in the face, of course, unless you were there and you walked the inches that you walked. But it's like a little depressed ravine-type area. There's plenty of footage available of it. To think that they would not have walked that far in, especially if these stories are true regarding personnel turning away additional searchers by claiming the area was already searched if it wasn't. I mean, that's just a strange story. I mean, even if it was, whether it was or wasn't searched, why was only that area there were people turning others away from searching? I mean, I'm assuming all these other areas were searched multiple times, right? How come in no other area other than the area the bodies were found were people turning away searchers? Is that not weird to certain people out there? I mean, how many of these coincidence theorists out there just ignore all this information? Now, of course, all of it could be false. All of these interviews could be false. All these people could be mistaken. But to just pretend that de facto, I mean, these are missing teens. To think that a real search would not have been done, I mean, that's kind of weird. That is kind of weird indeed. I mean, other theories regarding on why the search was stopped. So apparently, if the authorities were alerted of some kind of social media activity that made them think they were at a party or somebody else's house or something, whether fake or not, if the authorities truly believed they were legit, I mean, that's still kind of messed up that they would suspend the search. But then again, if they had the thermal imaging drone out and there was just no sign of them and there's 100 searchers, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of rough. I mean, that's kind of rough because it really does appear that they're just not there or farther out, in which case you would need to search at a larger radius. So perhaps suspending or minimizing the search around the bridge, I mean, that might seem logical and just moving farther and farther out, but how far out did the thermal imaging drone really search? I mean, there's people out there that claim it would not have been flown over the bridge when the drone operator explicitly said he did. So clearly the drone flew over where the bodies were found, and I'll just go real quick. You know, you're not arguing with me. Some people think they're arguing with me when they think the bodies would not have been found. I mean, you can go to sciencedirect.com. I mean, algor mortis, the body loses between 1 and 1.5 degrees Celsius per hour. And there's anywhere between a 30-minute and a 3-hour delay before that even starts happening. So the margin for error here, it's not like the drone was flown at like 3 o'clock in the morning where you start to crunch the math and you might think, okay, it might have not picked up thermal signatures. It was flown that afternoon, just mere hours later. Obviously, the bodies would have been cooling. Some people might just not understand how sensitive this equipment is. It's comparing the temperature relative to the ground. The bodies, it's not like the bodies cool to the ambient temperature instantly. It takes a really long time. Takes hours and hours. Those claiming, oh, well, they walked through the creek, therefore the temperatures wouldn't have picked up. Even if their entire lower half, or even if they were submerged up to the chest, as soon as they get out of the water, unless they're claiming they were killed in the water and dragged up, even then they'd probably have to have like floated in the water for a couple minutes in order to just get that temperature down before being drug up, in which case there would have been clear signs of dragged bodies. So no matter how you try, no matter how many mental gymnastics moves people try to make, I mean, it's weird. It's like they're so emotionally triggered they can't handle the possibility that the bodies really weren't there. It's just weird. I mean, that much blind faith in the idiot box, I don't know. People make mistakes. If law enforcement did not make mistakes, this case would be solved already. I mean, these are not advanced concepts to understand. So, yeah, clearly we have this searcher stating both sides were searched. There's some event to suspend the search. Now, That is curious. Now, we also have the phone pinging all over town. So, other cell phone technicians have chimed in and stated that in 2017, they were pretty exact in terms of pinging phones. So, when they say the phone pinged all over town, if that information is accurate, I mean, that's what was reported. It might not be accurate, but that is what was reported. And that would mean that the phone literally was moving a certain distance from cell towers. Now, the transfer from one tower to another, that can occur for a bunch of different reasons, but the distance the phone is from the tower is going back and forth. So was the phone brought back to the scene? So it wasn't there first, then it was brought back to the scene. Also, what nobody seems to talk about is the sneaker found near the hill, maybe the down the hill, maybe not, that was not found on the original search on the 13th. See, that's a problem. That would suggest the bodies were brought back and possibly there could have been some planted evidence, both in items of clothing, the phone, other possible issues. I mean, this is not rocket science. These are all theoretical possibilities, but you would have to think, I mean, how likely is all this? Obviously, if they released the drone footage, I'm assuming, depending on exactly where the drone took off of from, you might be able to even make out that sneaker unless, I mean, I guess they might have found it. No, they found it after, yeah. So you might, if the sneaker is there and they didn't found it, it should be there. But then if it's there the next day and it wasn't there the previous day, what does that mean? These are questions. I'm asking questions here. The other thing that's highly suspect in this case is, of course, the timeline. And the search, the issues with the search, if the girls were taken by car to another location, either willingly or not, again, this is all conjecture. What does that mean with the search? Because the search would have obviously not found them if they weren't there. The thermal imaging drone would have obviously not found them if they weren't there. Now, here's another issue. Some people purport that even the bridge guy video was planted to divert attention away from the true perpetrator or perpetrators. And the timeline of that Snapchat also, again, I don't know if we have actual Snapchat programmers that listen to the Mindshock podcast, but different people have said different things. Is that the timestamp of opening the photo and not the upload time? And even if it is the upload time, you can upload a photo that wasn't taken at that time. You can upload a previous photo at a different time. So is there irrefutable proof that they were at the bridge that day at that time? And I'm using the word irrefutable here. Obviously, there is evidence to suggest they were there at the time alleged. But is it irrefutable proof? Some argue it is not irrefutable. Here is a comment from Sue on the Mindshock YouTube. On Sunday, Abby's mom dropped her off at the Patty home after she practiced with her new ball and glove. Abby's grandfather headed back to Michigan Sunday. Now, is that the grandfather that lives just down the road from the bridge, from the alleged abduction site? Because if he's only a quarter or a half mile down that road, I mean, what does that mean for the case? But again, here it's stating he was not there. So in which case, again, I'm assuming law enforcement has checked this all out. And then weren't there other stories that stated that Abby had not been on the bridge before? So if she really lives down the road, right down the road from the bridge, I mean, I don't know. Again, I wasn't there. I really don't know. How likely is it that she has never been there and that others have never seen her? Now, Libby, of course, actually geocached in that area with Kelsey, so clearly they've been there before, but Abby's grandfather allegedly lives right down the road there. What does that mean for the case? Because that's something that wasn't really discussed early on. And then in the previous episode, we did discuss the rumor that one of the landowners may have possibly yelled at Liberty German for trespassing right in that area. So what does that mean for the case? But continuing with this post here, in the pics of Abby holding a softball and a ball glove, she is wearing black slacks. The bridge pic shows her wearing medium blue colored jeans with rips. So, did she go by her home after practice and change out of the black slacks and into the blue jeans before the Patty home drop-off? Did she pack an overnight bag with the blue jeans? If so, why the need to wash her clothes, as Becky Patty stated that Abby's clothes had gone through their washer and dryer? I don't understand the need to wash her clothes. She was there one night, not a week. She was to be there one night, not a week. Also, Becky Patty states that she herself seen a pic of Abby playing ball Sunday and Abby was wearing a jacket. So was the jacket that Abby was wearing Sunday the same jacket she is seen in Monday? If not, why not? Where is the jacket from Sunday? Kelsey German states the pic of Abby on the bridge Monday is her jacket, Kelsey German's jacket. Were the pic of Abby taken a different day? Now, these are some excellent questions, and we also have to keep in mind that apparently there were many videos and photos taken that day, the day before, and they would offer a lot of clues into the exact wardrobes here. And also the logistics of changing clothes. Now, I mean, obviously it's not that unusual for people to change their clothes throughout the day, particularly going from one place to another. But if they didn't, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, because there's a lot of other problems with the timeline. In any other case, you might not want to spend all this time closely examining wardrobe. But in this case, where the timeline is just so highly questionable, because in the previous episode, of course, we also talked about how possibly nobody actually saw the girls on the trail or on the bridge, which is a little strange because, again, if it was any other super cold day, there's not a lot of people walking the trails, okay, a lot less strange. But on such an unusually warm February day, that was also a day off from school where supposedly other kids from school would have been walking the trails who actually knew the girls. I mean, unless this all does exist and it's just been kept completely hush-hush by law enforcement for whatever reason. I mean, I guess that's a possibility as well. This is, of course, Mindshock, where the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. So this is all highly, highly questionable, and we don't have solid answers here. Now, if there were solid answers, would the case already be solved? Does law enforcement have enough information to solve the case? Some postulate they actually know exactly who did it. Dead or alive, they know, which is why the case is kind of dragging on in a way, because they're not in a rush because they already know. Others, of course, speculate they don't know. They don't know jack. This is completely botched, and it's going to be ongoing forever because of the botching. And with so much unverifiable information, I mean, there's really, it's hard to make heads or tails out of anything. If the bridge guy video is a plant by the perpetrator or perpetrators themselves, whether or not they're law enforcement or government officials, whether or not you want to go down that conspiracy rabbit hole, whether you want to go down it or not, is it possible the bridge guy video is a plant? I mean, there's a lot of problems with this case. That is one thing that cannot be disputed. Okay, so the last thing we're going to go over isn't specifically related to the search, but it is relatively mind-shocking, so I will go into this. So Tony Klein, the father of Keegan Klein, has been long speculated to either be Bridge Guy himself or somehow having assisted Keegan Klein if Keegan Klein was responsible in any way. Again, I am not claiming anyone is guilty or innocent. I don't know how many times I have to say that for all the goofs out there. But some people believe Tony Klein is Bridge Guy or partially responsible. Now, the Murder Sheet podcast has, of course, gotten into his history, which is apparently not clean. So he's had charges before, and apparently one of them was involving an 11-year-old. So, in relation to the Delphi case, there were early rumors that Libby German was going to be going to the police about something. Now, some people believe that's related to Derek German, her father, or some other drug-dealing individuals. But Is it possible it's related to Tony Klein? An interesting post from the Libby and Abby subreddit here by friendly Uncle Possum. Frankly, this is a game changer from my point of view. What are the odds that this is all just coincidence? Obviously, the coincidence theorist would say it all is, but the only partially named POI ever released by law enforcement who stalks and sexualizes children and has a father who stalks and threatens children while sexually harassing women is not involved with this murder. These Klein fellas are right at the top of the list of POIs for me. Now, again, I still don't know what to make of Garrett Kurtz, because, I mean, this is a guy that grew up on Ron Logan's land. He knew Ron Logan. He's already killed other people. He's a violent criminal. And he's not responsible for bodies found on Ron Logan's land, unless they all know each other, of course. Refer to the previous podcast episodes for those speculations. So, here's another post by Kelly C. Peters. A theory is popping into my mind after listening is that maybe Libby, who we know was talking to Keegan, later found out his true identity and was threatening to tell someone about him because he was manipulating her or threatening her, and either he coerced her into wiping her phone or she did it herself, given his dad's history with intimidation of the 11-year-old referred to in the podcast. Maybe his dad decided to take care of the problem since they knew the girls were there that day. Keegan and his dad could be alibis for each other that day, and Keegan could have been the driver, but not necessarily. Now Keegan's negotiations have broken down because he's not backing off the alibi. Although the witness account leads to the catfish photo, the original stands. Okay. So that's all quite mind-shocking. So we're going to go into another mind shock here because I don't believe this has ever been properly addressed. Are we about to solve the problem with the sketches? Because in this Kelly C. Peters post here, she mentions the new witness account leads to the catfish photo, the original stands. And here is a link to, I believe, a Facebook post. If I haven't posted this before, this is what she told me she actually saw. This is regarding the witness of the first sketch. Before law enforcement screwed around with it. Short-billed hat with a hoodie and the scarf below his nose. And around her height, which was 5'6" at the time. That was her description that law enforcement released in July 2017. And she did not wait months to come forward. She went to law enforcement as soon as the girls were found on the 14th. But she had seen this altered sketch I made right here and has agreed that it is similar to what she saw. She also guessed him to be in the 40s or 50s. This is what I have. I can't answer questions I have no answers for. This is what she and her mom shared with me. After that, think what you will. And a few responses here. It is a very helpful sketch that I haven't seen before. Definitely nefarious. There was no need for a face mask on such a mild day, unless this guy had asthma or some type of medical condition that required one. I would definitely wonder what was up with this guy if I came across him. Another response, I think you just proved a lot of people's theory if this is actually what one of the witnesses saw. And how could anyone give a close description of what the guy looks like? But going by his eyes and nose, there is even less to actually go on if this is the case. Wow. So if the witness actually did not see his mouth or his jaw, I mean, this actually would explain so much confusion, would it not? Would it not? So if the second sketch is the model and the catfish profile, which also doesn't make a lot of sense because why not you just use the photo from social media? Because if that was still up, unless it was all wiped and it was just recollection. But wouldn't there be an archive anyway on the other... Because apparently other people came forward about it on the social media. I don't know. But if it's both Keegan Klein and his father, Tony Klein, who both have criminal histories now, both have criminal histories involving minors, is it all coincidental? Now, the rumor about Libby going to the police, that's weird. That is weird. That was, I believe that was circulated early on. If it is indeed, if she did happen to find out information about individuals that were engaged in this online activity and she was planning to report them and she made that known, would that make her a target? So here's another post by Marissa. The Shack. Killer was abused as a child. Shred of conscience left in a son covering up for a dad, maybe, ? Keegan Klein allegedly threatened a girl for wanting to bring a friend to meet. Phone resetting. Early rumors of catfishing. And when the Anthony Shot stuff came out, a rumor that a friend of the girl's had also been talking to him, and even more rumors about Libby wanting to go to the police, many thoughts about the kind of coincidence it would have to be for all this and Keegan Klein and his dad to not be directly involved. But what we've thought about that and 10 other known people, we're always wrong. Some more posts here. I always assumed going to the police meant in general, not at a certain time, and thought it may be pertinent to something she had learned during her class at Purdue. With all the different POIs, I thought maybe she learned something about one of them. Now I wonder if she was going to report the Anthony Shots account. So, I don't know. This is all very, very strange, very, very sketchy. It still does not really explain the issues with the timeline the day of. Were they intentionally muddied because the Kleins are potentially connected to other individuals? If the girls were taken either willingly or unwillingly from that bridge location, if they were ever even there in the first place, taken elsewhere, was there some kind of fake party setup to maybe try to intimidate Libby not to go to the police? And then something went wrong? And then since they knew the girls were at the bridge before, they wanted to... I mean, that's still a very, very high risk to bring the bodies back unless they were in some kind of an outbuilding relatively close to the location. And that, again, that's where Garrett Kurtz comes in. He's very familiar with the entire property. He would know where all the outbuildings are. If he's connected to the Kleins, I mean, that makes a little bit more sense, does it not? Does it not? And then if we're going down major rabbit holes, if there's also some kind of law enforcement corruption or FBI investigation taking place with possibly complicit FBI agents, that would render the investigation basically useless, that they would never find out the real truth if that's what those agents wanted, if they were involved. So obviously we don't know any of this. Again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say that. There's so many goofs out there hallucinating that I'm actually reporting an assumption is a fact or some kind of nonsense. I am not reporting anything is true or untrue. I don't know how to say it in more simple terms, but I've said it so many times in this episode. Hopefully all the goofs out there, if their mental deficiencies are not too extreme, they could understand at this point. If they are, I mean, really, the Mindshock podcast is obviously not for them. They can stick to the mainstream sources on the Idiot Box. Hope you guys enjoyed another edition of Mindshock True Crime. Found it interesting and informative, opening up all possible lines of inquiry and investigation. Because, of course, the truth is not afraid of investigation. The case is unsolved for a reason. If you want to support Mindshock, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel, get access to exclusive streams and chats. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, like and share, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.
If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. You are listening to the Delphi Murders Case Series. I'm your host, Bruce McGuire, and this is episode 29, examining the HLN 2022 special on the Delphi murders, new information released, interview with Keegan Klein. I'm sure it's just a partial interview, but we will be examining this interview, as well as a new interview from Doug Carter. All of this coming out within the past month, February 2022. The 5-year anniversary of this as of yet unsolved double murder in Delphi, Indiana. And there's a lot of problems with this case. I mean, we're on episode 29 here, so make sure you catch up on the previous episodes, because I will be referencing issues that we have gone over before. As always, if you enjoy the podcast, you want to support Mindshock, support logical examinations of true crime cases, keeping up awareness in these unsolved and cold cases, as well as other topics, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Get access to exclusive members-only streams and chats, of course, for more advanced listeners who are already familiar with the basic details of these cases. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You can also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. All right, so for the immediate breakdown, there was a user, Heightster, on the Delphi Murders subreddit, which is kind of a cesspool of a lot of coincidence theorists, authority-worshipping cultists, but there's also some good users there who can utilize critical thinking. Not a ton, but they're there, and they offer very good conversation. The moderators are, of course, not great, as in most subreddits. They're just pushing narratives and dogmas. But this is obviously why people listen to Mindshock, because we are all about logical examinations, not falling for these silly fallacies. So the post here, rundown of HLN show. Hello all, it's been a while since I've been active on the sub due to the lack of information and being overwhelmed by the rehashing of old content, but I watched the HLN show for the 5-year anniversary and have a few thoughts that I did not see anyone bringing up yet. 1, HLN claims to have reputable, informed people on the show, but barely 10 minutes in I was already cringing. They said, not a very populated area, so I would think they would see a limited number of people pinging off the cell tower in the area. Paul Holes. We know for a fact that there was only one cell tower in all of Delphi at the time. Everyone in the area would be pinging off the same tower. Well, two things there, actually, to dissect this point. First of all, weren't there 2 cell towers at the time? Now, again, I don't live in Delphi. I'm not sure what the cell tower count was. I thought locals had mentioned, again, maybe they were informed, maybe not. Locals had mentioned that there were 2 towers there in 2017, and then there was a 3rd tower that's now there that was not there during the time. But again, in modern times, depending on how the phone location is triangulated, engineers and data analysts have been saying that they can actually locate a phone within 1 to 3 feet. So it's not just the ping of which tower. I mean, decades ago, when cell phone technology was more new and not utilized, I'm not sure the radius. I think back, decades ago, you could only get a certain mile radius. It would not give you exact phone location. But I would say post-2010, post-2015, now they have really, really accurate ping information where they can measure how far the phone is from the tower. So that is very significant. Back to the post here, point 2. It is harder to clean up an outdoor scene. Mary Ellen O'Toole previously worked for the FBI. She mentions that Bridge Guy would have had a harder time cleaning up his personal DNA clues that can lead law enforcement to him. I wish she had said more about how much harder outdoor scenes make it for the crime scene techs to find DNA or clues. I have always assumed outdoor scenes are harder to find the DNA clues, and law enforcement has alluded to that in the past. I felt like she tried to spin it very positively, like it's a much greater chance that Bridge Guy left clues, but what good are clues if law enforcement can't pick them up? Love that Joseph Scott Morgan touched on this later. 3, knowing Bridge Guy was on the bridge at 2:13 closed the window for us. We already knew it was between 2 and 3:30. I think the most important part about knowing this time is what it tells us that Bridge Guy has just over an hour between when he encountered the girls to when Libby's dad showed up. This should clear up the idea that Bridge Guy had a lot of time with them. Not really. So again, this poster is presupposing quite a few factors. How they got that, he just took on blind faith that this was true, but how that, and also on blind faith that that individual was the one who murdered them. I mean, there's just so much presupposition here in the post. But again, if you haven't checked out the previous episodes, check them out. It is not an irrefutable fact that that image was taken that afternoon at the time alleged. Again, we really would need some Snapchat engineers, but supposedly you can upload a photo that was taken at a different time, and the time stamp would be either when it was uploaded or when it was opened by an individual viewing on Snapchat. And even when it was taken, when you're looking into the metadata, there's also a way to fake that. Now, again, who are we dealing with here? Are we dealing with the greatest criminal mastermind geniuses? Probably not. But if they're involved in catfishing and making fake accounts and cloning IPs or whatever they're doing, it's possible they could have manipulated the phone evidence as well. So these are all presuppositions that an individual was there at that time. And even if an individual was, even so-called Bridge Guy, is the guy in the video the guy that was previously arrested and no longer a person of interest as per Indiana State Police? Again, if you haven't checked that out in previous episodes, make sure you check that out. 4, in short, I think Keegan Klein is working hard to clear himself of the murders and is accepting his charges. But I think we need to keep in mind that he can say whatever he wants. We don't know what are lies and what is him just enjoying the fame of being interviewed by HLN. Sure, but we will dissect that interview in a little bit. 5, law enforcement has said that the first sketch is secondary. Why are Paul Holes and Mary Ellen O'Toole acting as if the sketches have not been confirmed as confusing and having 2 sketches? Second, why are they even talking about combining the 2? Law enforcement has said it's a different direction. They're only causing confusion instead of going off what law enforcement has said about why they released a new one. These people with credentials feel like little more than armchair detectives because they don't have any more information than any of us do. Well, not necessarily, but again, as I went over in the previous episode, we actually cleared up the sketch confusion. Apparently the witness described someone with a scarf over their face. So, and again, if this is not the murderer and an individual who may or may not be involved with the murderers, kidnappers, perpetrator, was what have you, either way, that first sketch released was not exactly what the witness described in the first place. Again, check out the previous episode. 6, they didn't bring in dogs, did not put out an APB, send out an Amber Alert, ping off cell towers. Casey Jordan, attorney, criminologist. We know that they did work with the carrier to check on Libby's phone, pinging off the cell tower, because when she did the restart, they did not set up Find My Friends yet. Delphi or Carroll County law enforcement did request an Amber Alert, and ISP denied the request. This is a short article from WTHR.com. Why no Amber Alert for missing Delphi teens? There are a lot of questions about why no Amber Alert was issued for a pair of missing Carroll County girls Monday. Late Monday night, the Carroll County Sheriff's Office said they tried to request an alert for 13-year-olds Abby Williams and Liberty German, who were last seen 1 p.m. on a hiking trail near Delphi. Their request was turned down by Indiana State Police. There are several criteria for state police to issue an Amber Alert. While both girls were under 18 and police had enough descriptive information to help find them, there was no belief at the time the girls were abducted and in serious danger. Those are some fine lines because, I mean, who knows how many could be saved if they were erring on the side of caution for Amber Alerts. On the other hand, if you do have flooded Amber Alerts for just anyone and everyone that just had their phone die and didn't come home and is perfectly safe somewhere, that is also taking away attention from the cases where there is definitely signs of danger. Perhaps they need to have other different degrees of Amber Alerts. So this could have been a lower degree. That way it wouldn't supersede cases where somebody was, there's a lot more evidence of a crime. They did call in dogs from St. Louis and turn them away when they found the bodies. Toby has repeatedly said he regrets that. Once again, I was left feeling as though these informed guests on HLN have read the bare minimum on this case. 7. The hair without a root comment by Paul Holes is very interesting. I think finding out they took hair from Keegan Klein and that it is not a common practice with the advancement of DNA technology made me question just what kind of DNA the team has. I have always thought it was limited, but it may be bare minimum. 8. Joseph Scott Morgan mentions an edged weapon. We have never heard of a weapon type. I wish they would have cited where he learned that. Overall, I am so glad that there was some recognition on the 5-year anniversary. It is interesting to learn that the Anthony Schatz profile is allegedly the last person to have spoken with Libby, the exact time of encounter, and the length of video. It's important to note that all of the professionals on the show have very little to any additional information than us, and so their insider thoughts, opinions are only their thoughts and opinions. Local law enforcement, ISP, and the FBI are the only ones who actually know what they're holding back, and therefore need to be the ones to make the final call on what information is released. I hope the family is closer to answers. Today is the day. Some responses here. This is actually an interesting post. Indiana invested in the hair processing technology in 2018, and most cases with age or difficulties to solve will be future-proofed. They will collect everything just in case technology develops. Something to consider in your thinking. I mean, that's definitely an interesting point there. If they know they have DNA that's not usable at the moment, but it's more than nothing, perhaps they are trying to future-proof in some capacity, which is obviously a good thing to do. Okay, so nothing super groundbreaking in the HLN special, of course. Some people believe the confirmation of the 43 seconds or whatever. But again, we're still dealing with incomplete information. But let's examine Keegan Klein's interview here, what is probably just a small portion.
I feel like I'm being harassed completely.
Did you have anything to do with the murders of Abby or Libby?
Not at all, and I've gave up my DNA, a hair follicle test. I've done everything they wanted me to.
All right, so right off the bat, you can notice his voice does have an older sounding voice to, because it's not like he's this old guy in his 40s or 50s, but his voice does have a sort of textured quality that the Down the Hill voice has. Now, as I've stated before,
Guys. Down the hill. Guys. Down the hill. Guys. Down the hill. Guys. Down the hill. Guys. Down the hill.
if law enforcement manipulated the video, or if it was the audio, or it was recorded through a jacket or pocket or whatever it was, whatever means they use to process the audio, the voice we are hearing might not be the actual voice. So even though individuals, their voice matches what we hear is not necessarily what the guy saying down the hill actually sounds like in real life. So that's an important point to consider. Now, regarding his sincerity here, I don't know. It really seems like he's either sociopathic, which is very possible, very, very possible. A lot of criminals are. Or he's not. If he's not sociopathic, it seems like he is kind of being honest here. I gotta say, I am not picking up incredible vibes of deception. Now, just from his facial expressions, his body language. Now, again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. If he's a sociopath, he could clearly say anything, and there would be nothing to pick up.
In December, Delphi investigators announced that catfish account Anthony Schatz was active on Instagram and Snapchat in 2016 and 2017, and they asked for anyone who interacted with that profile to come forward. But more than a year ago, then 26-year-old Keegan Klein admitted to investigators that he was behind the fake profile and that he used it to ask young girls for nude pictures and videos. Tell me about Anthony Schatz. Why did you create that profile?
I don't really know. I was just lonely, you know what I mean? Just talking to people. I don't know why I did it, really.
And were you ever trying to meet these girls in real life that you were talking
No.
to?
No, never.
Okay, so on the no never, I don't know. That does not seem as natural sounding. That might have been deceptive, unless of course somebody else is using his account, and that other on the Murder Sheet podcast, if the listener was not genuine, who said that Keegan Klein did in fact meet her and was angry that she brought a friend or whatnot. So if that story's not true, however, Keegan Klein did, that intonation in the no never does sound a little different than the rest of his answers there. Again, this is just what I am perceiving here. Now, just because he tried doesn't mean he succeeded, or he's simply much more nervous about that question for whatever reason, or some other thoughts are going through his mind. That's another interesting point. A lot of people don't factor that in. Even when you're taking a polygraph, if someone is thinking of something else for whatever reason, they're super nervous that something else might be found out, and they happen to be thinking about that something else a lot during a particular question, that answer might be deceptive, even though they're telling the truth, just because they're incredibly nervous about something else. So we have to factor that as well. But here, Keegan Klein seems like to be this immature, goofy guy. I'm not getting serial killer vibes from him. I'm also not getting incredible strength. Like, he seems to have like a lot of soy in his diet. I mean, this would not be the guy that I would pick to just violently murder anybody. He seems more of like a Dungeons and Dragons type player who just is not into any kind of physical exertion of any kind. Now, again, that doesn't mean he's innocent or guilty. That doesn't mean he's guilty either. But or not guilty. So again, that's not enough there. These are just initial impressions from the interview here.
Just 11 days after the murders of Abby and Libby, task force investigators served a search warrant on the home that Keegan shared with his dad. At the time, the FBI told the Lafayette Journal and Courier they found nothing to indicate a connection to the Delphi case. Keegan's electronics were confiscated then, but he wasn't arrested until 3 years later. He's now facing 30 counts of child pornography and child solicitation in Miami County, Indiana, unrelated to the Delphi murders. He says, though, that Indiana State Police told him Anthony Schatz had been communicating with Libby before her murder. So why do you think investigators are putting so much focus on you right now?
I have not a clue. I think it's because they said I was the last person to talk to her, is what they've told me.
And then she shows up at the bridge and they're abducted and later found dead.
Right.
And that was not you?
No, 100% not.
Keegan says he has no memory or knowledge of communicating with Libby, and investigators haven't confirmed if what he says is true. Do you think you're going to be charged with anything related to Abby and Libby's murder?
No, I don't.
So the state police haven't threatened that?
No.
So again, he seems genuinely honest in those answers where he says he doesn't believe he'll be charged and he wasn't threatened with those charges. But when he said if he tried to meet any of them in real life, that no never seemed a little different. Again, just what I picked up here. Could also be just because he's thinking about something else. Also notice in the show, they did not we don't hear the audio of him denying remembering talking to Libby online or whatever. So we don't have that information to discern whether or not he is genuine about not remembering. Or we don't have questions here about asking if he gave out his account to others. There's really just not a whole lot here. But what I think can be gleaned here is I think this does lower the probability that he is the physical perpetrator. If he assisted somebody, maybe, but he just seems so goofy here and just not the type of individual that would commit a brutal, ruthless crime like this. I mean, it's looking more likely that his father, just in terms of physical capability and possible mental wherewithal, would be possibly more likely to have killed him. Obviously, it's impossible to truly determine likelihood just based on all the unknown variables, but just surface area impressions is what I'm getting here. So we do have that portion here. It definitely does not make him look like this sadistic killer, which, again, many killers who are good at hiding their true nature might come off like this as well. Again, it doesn't really prove anything in one way or the other, but it doesn't light a fire under this particular individual as a suspect, skyrocketing to number one suspect based on the interview. That's all I'm saying there. So let's move on now to Doug Carter's latest interview here. All right, so let's move on to Doug Carter's extended interview here. This was posted February 14th, 2022 by News Nation. So right off the bat here, now with Doug Carter, again, he's hard to read. So again, I've done these logical analyses and micro expression and body language analyses. Most people are relatively easy to get kind of a read on, just in general. Doug Carter is difficult. Now again, I am not saying he's guilty of anything. He might be completely genuine and full of integrity. It's just something seems off about him. I don't know if it's just he's twitchy because of a particular issue. He's like jumpy and he oscillates between emotions really quickly. Again, nothing actually negative here or any kind of deception in any way. Just because of this quirky jumpiness, it is very difficult to get any kind of a read on him, but I will attempt and we'll see what we can do here.
Lieutenant, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. I'll just start it on a question. Superintendent, we're on 5 years now. What does this case mean to you?
Oh gosh, it would take me a while to explain it, but I think it's the totality of evil in my career, me personally. But the beauty of it is I get to represent some amazing people that have given their entire life to this. They're one of the last things I think about every day and one of the first things I think of in the morning.
I mean, it almost seems like he has some kind of maybe PTSD or something where he's always on edge, even in the quiet moments where he's thinking about something to say. It's almost like there's just this high tension and he's always on edge and there's this jumpy quality. And this makes it really difficult to dissect his statements.
What is the focus of your investigation right now, and what is the evidence telling you?
Well, I'm not going to talk about the evidence. I think we've done a fair job of doing that over the course of these last 5 years. There's been a tremendous amount of speculation, Rich, about what we know and what we don't know.
So right there, you saw how he kind of palmed his nose, which is a little interesting. So, of course, touching the nose, well known in body language as being deceptive or doubtful of what the individual is saying. Like they're saying something like they did a pretty good job. He knows they didn't. So, get it? Nose. So, again, that doesn't mean he's guilty or complicit or in on any kind of conspiracy or cover-up. That just means he's clearly not 100% comfortable with what he just said there. But let's continue here.
I think most people's intentions are good when they've done their own courses of investigations globally.
So that massive fake over smile that he just did also is usually indicative of deception. Like he says, most people are good. It's almost like he wants to believe it himself, but he doesn't really believe it, and he's going a little overboard with that smile. Again, he is just so jumpy it's really hard to tell if this is true deception. If he wasn't jumpy and he didn't have these kind of quirks, it would be easier to say they really mean these things. Again, I'm not alleging that this really means anything. I'm just attempting to discern what we have here, given that his baseline is a very difficult baseline.
But I'm pretty confident in the place where we are right now. And eventually the world's going to know what we do. I still get between probably 25 and 40 direct tips a week right here.
Also there, that quick sticking of the tongue out, which seems kind of random, right after he says eventually everybody's going to know what they know. It's almost like again, someone with a more normal, non-jumpy baseline. This would mean that they're mocking or taunting the audience in some capacity.
Literally from around the world. Germany, Australia, of late, Italy, and then almost every state in the country. And I'll forward that up to our investigators in Carroll County. Tony Liggett from the Cass County from the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, Tobe Lenzenby and Jerry Holman and Dave Vito or Jay Harper are troopers that are assigned to this. And it's just amazing to me that they have that same energy and the same gumption today that they did almost 5 years ago. It's an extraordinary thing to watch.
You say eventually the world is going to know. Does that mean you are close, in your opinion?
I think we're closer every day. We're closer every single day. The tips keep coming. And once that comes in, once that completes itself, then we're going to have to assign another 60 or 80 detectives to this and go back through every single lead that we've ever gotten. I'm confident that there'll be a successful conclusion for Abby and Libby, for Mike and Becky and Anna, and for that community.
And you saw he licked his lips like 3 times during that little monologue there. So, licking the lips, of course, generally that just means anxiety or stress. But it could also mean that you're saying more than you want to in a way, and you want to keep the truth in. So you kind of almost reining it in. But nervousness or anxiety, of course, leads to a dry mouth. So then you would lick your lips almost like you're trying to be very careful of the words. Now, again, the anxiety, I mean, of course he's under stress and anxiety to solve the case. So again, that doesn't necessarily mean intentional deception, but it is interesting. It's definitely interesting on how these cues manifest here based on what he's saying.
I'm confident that there will.
Do you have a person or persons of interest, or do you have a suspect?
I'm confident that this will come to a conclusion eventually.
And there we have the pursed lips. Again, a sign of trying to keep the truth in. Communication coach and speaker John English actually has an interesting write-up on what specific micro-expressions regarding the lips and pursed lips. I'm going to read his excerpt here. He says it very well, actually. The lip-purse body language movement reveals tension, frustration, disapproval, and anger. It is effectively holding the mouth shut to keep the person from saying what they really want to say. Often tied to dishonesty, this lip expression or microexpression is often used by people who are evading their options and deciding which option to go with. Often these options are, should I lie or should I tell the truth? So, I mean, these are obvious lip purses here from Doug Carter. So is he angry? Does he not even believe his own words regarding this confidence? I mean, wasn't he confident early on? Now it's 5 years in. He's still confident? Kind of weird.
In the past, you have said we have likely interviewed the killer. Do you still think that?
I think that we're not going to singularly identify anyone right now, at least publicly.
So there we had the touching of the nose, the licking of the lips. I mean, it's just there's so much going on here, and he's so jumpy as it is, just sitting there. It's like, I mean, this is just tough.
But again, we've done, we would be that I would be included in that. I'm not included in that. The detectives that have been assigned this, task forces have been assigned this, have talked to hundreds, if not thousands of people. And again, one day we'll be able to tell you why we did that and who did it.
So, okay, that's just kind of weird because he just said a whole lot of something while saying nothing. Because, so he himself has not interviewed a single person? That's kind of weird because he said he's not included. And why did he feel the need to differentiate from himself from the rest of the police force? Is that some kind of subconscious Freudian slip in terms of disagreeing or having a different theory on what's going on than everybody else? Like he wants to make a clear distinction for whatever reason. I mean, he's part of law enforcement. He could easily say we, as in speaking for law enforcement. I mean, he's the superintendent. I mean, it's just kind of weird how he chose that moment regarding interviewing the possible killer to separate himself from all the other investigators who did these interviews. It's just kind of weird. I don't
know. Early on, you released a sketch of how do I phrase it? Early on, you released a sketch, and later you released a different sketch.
Right.
Why have the sketches changed so dramatically?
Well, investigations evolve. One of the things that I've said consistently throughout this entire process, Reg, is that...
So clearing the throat is a possible sign of deception, but generally it is tied to disagreement, anxiety, or doubtfulness. Uncertainty. So does that mean he's not even certain himself why the sketches were switched up? So he just has running theories. So is it possible that he doesn't know for sure that law enforcement were misled or given false leads through sketches? Why did he choose that moment to clear his throat? I mean, again, we're dealing with body language, micro expressions, and again, subconscious tells. There's a reason this is a science that is used to discern deception, because it usually works. Again, it's like anything. If nothing is perfect, everybody's baseline is different. Everybody's subconscious is a little different. So it's not that any of these are 100% de facto reveals of intentions, but the timing of them is curious. I have to say, a little bit curious.
Remember, a sketch is not a photograph, but there'll be pieces and parts of that sketch that will make that photograph whole. You see. So if we didn't evolve with information and we didn't evolve with what we know, then shame on us. Unfortunately, we're not in a position where we can tell everybody why we switch gears.
So a couple interesting analyses on rubbing the eye there, because he chose that moment to rub the edge of his eye. What does that symbolize? So in general, this is, again, just a subconscious effect to kind of almost close your eyes. You can't believe what you're seeing or doing. There's something distasteful here. So rubbing the eyes is the brain's attempt to block out the deceit, doubt, or distasteful things it sees, or to avoid having to look at the face of the person who is being lied to. Another variation here, and you can go to bodylanguageproject.com and read a lot of these. I mean, I'm not just making these up. This is a science. Here's some examples here. I'm lying. I'm embarrassed by my own action. So I'm going to cover up my eyes like I did when I was a kid, although they stop short and instead just scratch the upper cheek or edge of the eye. Again, subconscious here. And another interesting point here, when the eyes actually need scratching, they will happen at random rather than coupled with critical information. So, of course, the sketches have been a point of contention since the beginning. And again, he could have scratched his eye or touched his nose. He could have done that at any point in the conversation. But it's always curious when they happen at specific moments. People can be caught punctuating their own lies by momentarily touching their eye as if they are trying to prevent the discomfort associated with bearing witness to them. When lying is due to negative thoughts, it is an abbreviated form of eye blocking. Think back to childhood when you would have to cover your eyes if you saw something frightening on TV. As we grow older, our cues become more constrained. So instead of cupping our hands over both eyes, we touch the corner of the eye or come up short and scratch the upper cheek instead.
Why we make a slight turn to the right or a slight turn to the left. And that's where the speculation begins, and that's where the animosity comes, and the frustration. And I understand it. I do understand it. Because very selfishly, there's other than the family of Abby and Libby in that community up there, there's nobody that wants to find this monster more than me.
In December, you came out.
And notice there's no sticking out of the tug. There's no eye rubbing or nose rubbing when he mentions that nobody wants to find this guy more than him. So is that part true? Again, just curious in comparing these micro expressions and body language cues.
In December, you came out and said, you asked for the public's help and saying, anybody who's communicated with this Anthony Schatz profile on social media, please get in contact. Did Abby and Libby communicate with this profile?
I'm not going to talk about that, but I am going to say that we learned a tremendous amount through that particular investigative course.
Interesting. Curl of one side of the mouth. And the lip curl, of course, is associated with disgust. And that's obviously seems a normal reaction to what Keegan Klein and the Anthony Schatz account was doing. So he's clearly disgusted by that. So that seems on the ball. Nothing unusual there.
What can you tell me about this man who has been arrested, the creator of this profile, Keegan Klein?
All I can say about Keegan is that entire issue and the entire release has allowed us to glean significant investigative leads. That's all I can say about him.
So significant leads. So does that mean there has to be an association with the case? Because if everything's completely unrelated, why does he keep talking about the significant information gleaned and the significant leads?
I've spoken to some people who were involved in the investigation early on, and they say that there's more. There's more video, there's more sound. Why not release more of that?
It's important that we don't show our hand, quite frankly, and very directly. We're not going to explain what we know about the killer. We're not going to do that. We're not going to explain some of the intricate details of the death of Abby and Libby.
Another throat clear there, of course, just possible anxiety, disagreement, or doubt. Maybe he wanted to release it and others didn't. Or maybe he didn't and others did. Either way, again, interesting time to clear his throat. Notice he did not clear his throat when he's talking about how nobody wants the monster caught aside from him and, of course, the family. And just these are just curiosities to examine.
Unfortunately, one day we're going to have to. But then that's going to create a whole other issue with family and friends and the community and the like. So from an investigative standpoint, I'm not going to talk any more about it.
The audio that you released, it says guys down the hill. Does guys and down the hill come right next to each other in the original recording?
Again, there's speculation about what that means, what was actually said, who said it, was it connected, was it the same voice? And again, that's an investigative component of this, and I'm not worthy to discuss it. I'm not worthy to discuss it. I'm not worthy to discuss it. I'm not worthy to discuss it.
I'm not worthy to discuss it? What the heck does that mean? I'm not worthy? Is that another Freudian slip? I mean, I don't know what to make of this whole interview. It is really weird. These micro expressions and body language tells are weird. Most of them seem pretty congruent with what's going on. He doesn't want to say, or he's lying about certain reasons. but he did seem to adamantly want to catch this monster. So again, make of that what you will. There was no deception detected there. But as far as all these other issues, I mean, and why would he not be able to even say if it belongs to the? He's refusing to even say whether "guys" was said by the same individual who said "down the hill." Does that make any sense? Like, what benefit is there to hiding? I mean, I don't know. It's weird.
From what we've seen, there's footage of the girl of this suspect, of this person of interest, from I believe Libby's phone. Is there surveillance video of the girls at any time going?
Rich, I'm doing this interview to talk about the effects that this gruesome crime has had on a community, on a state, and on a nation. I'm not going to talk about the evidence. It's not one.
Okay.
Okay. I've got nothing
Okay.
new. I've got nothing new to release.
Okay. I'll switch gears here. I'm sorry.
Interesting dodge. He does not want to talk about evidence at all. Weird.
Social media has kind of tried to devour this case. They're consumed with it. Has social media affected the investigation, positive or negative in any way?
That's a great question, and I think we have this amazing ability to communicate today, and I don't understand it. I'm not going to pretend to, but what I do know is that we have been able to glean information literally from around the globe. The intelligence that we've received, not only on this case, but on many other criminal cases and criminal matters around the country, has been extraordinary. So I think when people start doing their own investigation and start comparing what they think, that creates problems. We've asked them not to do that. There are a lot of people that look like the sketches that we've released. And then when you blow that out there with a picture of somebody that they think next to a sketch, imagine what it does to that person if they're not involved at all. Right. So we've tried to be very, very careful and very cautious there with how we've done that. But I got to tell you, every time a tip pops up on my screen, I smile because I'm so grateful. Now, the downside of that is we can't respond to every one of them. I get so many of these where people want a direct response and an explanation as to what an explanation from me as to what they're thinking. And for obvious reasons, I just can't do that. But I think it's been an amazing effort in collecting an extraordinary amount of data and intelligence, and then how are we going to collate that? Because I think the vast majority of people are doing what they think is right. I hope that answers the question, because it's a really good point, and it's been something like I've never seen in my entire career.
So also notice there, he's a lot less nervous answering that question. Other than those big fake smiles, there's really no signs of real deception there. He admits to not being the most social media savvy guy, and given his age, that's not really unusual. And yeah, there's just not a lot of deception. All of a sudden, he doesn't need to clear his throat or touch his eye or touch his nose or twitch his lips or whatever, or lick his lips or stick his tongue out. All of a sudden, there's none of these issues or cues. I mean, just curious, but let's continue.
How can the public continue to help with this case?
Keep doing what they're doing. Keep doing what they're doing. I hope that this has brought a light, maybe even a glimmer of hope, to monitoring what happens out there from a parental perspective, a peer perspective, a relative's perspective, a neighbor's perspective, whatever that might be, because again of the way in which we have the ability to communicate. And finally, what I'll say to that is, law enforcement should never talk about what we think. We should only talk about what we know.
Where's all this confidence coming from? So is his confidence not what he thinks, so he knows? So does that mean they know? So if they don't know according to what he said just there, that means they must know who did it if he's not being hypocritical.
And it's easy for someone else, for a person out there trying to do the right thing, to make what they think what they know. You see what I mean? And it's really important. I know you see it all the time. And it's really important, particularly as we face head-on a complete planet that's out of balance right now, and the vitriol and the negativity associated with every single thing we do. And it just breaks my heart, whether it's race, whether it's white or black or Asian or whatever. It doesn't make any difference. It seems that if we don't agree, we hate each other, and I don't hate anybody for trying to help us.
How important a piece of this puzzle is that video that Libby pulled out her phone and started recording? I mean, the wherewithal she must have had in that moment to do that.
Yeah,
is
I'm not
remarkable.
going to talk about that specifically, but what I will say about it is it adds, again, a little bit of weight to a very complicated murder investigation.
And there goes the nose touch. See, as soon as evidence is brought up, he just really doesn't want to talk about the evidence.
So I'd much rather have it than not, I think, is how I'd respond to that.
I'm going to ask it, and if you don't want to go there, I understand. The crime scene, the area where their bodies were found.
Wow, look at all of that activity in his lips.
From what I've been told and from being there, is very hard to reach, and some have speculated that it's only reachable if you cross this creek, or if you, and the speculation is that this is a person that was very familiar with the terrain. Can you speak to that at all?
One thing I'd say is any place in the country that's rural, there's multiple points of access, generally speaking, especially in Indiana that's hilly, but mostly flat. So again, there's a lot of speculation as to why they might have been there, but I'm not going to talk about it right now.
I've seen in press briefings in the past where you've addressed this person or persons directly. Is there anything that you'd like to say to them?
They're watching. They're watching. And we'll meet them soon. We'll meet them.
Look at that. All of a sudden, no more lipping, nose touching, eye touching. I mean, just very direct there. Very, very direct. I mean, what does everybody make of that? I mean, look at that. Just all of a sudden, he doesn't need to touch his nose or lick his lips or purse his lips or twitch his lips. All of a sudden, he's dead serious. No deception there. Or no nervousness even there. It's just interesting. If nothing else, it's just interesting.
Anything you'd like to talk about, because I'm not asking you about Abby and Libby or their families or anything like that you really want me to get across?
You know, Rich, man, I hope everybody asks me that question, because that's why we do what we do, right? And that's why you do what you do. It's why I do what I do. And that's why all of us have a little bit of piece of the puzzle here, or a piece of the pie or whatever. I want to meet with Mike and Becky and Anna, and I want to tell them we did it. That's what I want to tell them. We collectively did it, and it's the last year of the sheriff's term up there. I'm sure that he wants this resolved by the end of it, because he's lived it for now 5 years too, like everybody else. The community, my gosh, what an extraordinary community. 2 deputies, a jail officer and a merit deputy, were just killed in a car accident. On the 29th of January, just a couple weeks ago. The Flora fire that killed those 4 beautiful young girls in November 2016. They seem to have a shadow up there, and I don't understand why. But I've seen such enormous outpouring of support.
And what's interesting is when he said he doesn't understand why, there was no tell there. So again, if we're taking the baseline, these more traditional baselines, the lipping, the eye touching, the nose touching, he said that pretty straight. So is he really not involved, but there's just a ton of corruption that does not involve him? Would that account for that? I mean, I don't know if he's this level of criminal mastermind genius to fake all of these body language tells. That would be impressive if he could, because these are subconscious tells. But from all accounts here, it seems like he's not directly involved or responsible in any conspiracy or cover-up or perpetration of the crimes. He's obviously lying about a lot of things, but again, that in no way makes him involved in any way in the actual crime. And he seems very sincere in saying he wants to solve it. So what do we make of that?
And not just for people dressed funny like me, but for really for everybody up there. They taught us a lot about humility, and they taught us a lot about human interaction, and a lot about caring for one another, and they didn't even know it. They didn't even know it at the time. And then from a very personal perspective, I believe that I'll see their smiling faces once again. One day. One day.
Here we are at 5 years.
Yeah.
How often do you think about this case?
My number one worry throughout the course of the day, because it's such a violent world we live in, is my hope and my prayer for people like Sergeant Jeremy Pierce. They get home every day, you know. We've got a lot of work to do in the way in which we treat other people. But I can't. There's not many waking minutes that I'm not thinking about those two little girls.
Seems like a great place to end it, unless there's other things you would like to introduce. And if so, I can ask a question to introduce
No,
it.
you know, I please talk about those folks that are up there continuing to do this work.
You mean the sheriff,
The sheriff and Tony and Jerry Holman and Dave Vito and Jay Harper. And we have so many other people from our laboratory personnel that are so committed to this. Intelligence people that deal with it, work on it every single day. The U.S. Marshals, the task forces of federal agencies. It's been an extraordinary thing to see, and it's made us better. Their work collectively has made us better. It's not been perfect. You put two people in a room, eventually you're going to argue, right? Eventually.
Right.
So we fuss with each other just like brothers and sisters do. But everybody's intent is the same. Everybody's intent is the same. And their life's focus is Abby and Libby. And then the family, and then the community, and then the county, and then the state, and then the nation, and then the countries from around the world that we've talked with. I guess with such violence and such horror, some good's come out of this.
Okay, so typical law enforcement answer there, but it would be curious, what is the extent of the U.S. Marshal involvement in this case? Because what is the extent of their involvement? Like, how heavy are they involved in cases like this typically? So, I mean, I don't know. And what obviously the FBI was on the ground there earlier in investigating some other case. So, a lot of weird, bizarre stuff in this case. That was Doug Carter's latest extended interview. A lot of tells there, but if anything, I mean, walking away from that interview, it looks like he did seem genuine on the critical points of wanting to find who did it. And he didn't seem so jumpy and deceptive at those moments, but all the other moments, especially discussing all the evidence, I mean, I don't know what to make of that. It's pretty bizarre. Very, very bizarre. And the HLN documentary, of course, just a lot of speculation there, not a ton of new information either. So that's all we have there. There are a couple other POIs that we do need to go over with a variety of evidence in their directions. Now, whether, again, this is part of some kind of ring or some of these guys know each other, people in the same business tend to know each other. That doesn't mean they were all involved in this crime, but if one or two or three of them were, it's possible that some of the network knew about it. If you're going by the theory that this was kind of like a snuff film and this was being paid for, possible Child Protective Service government involvement and corruption, which may not include Doug Carter. Again, we just went over this interview with him. He kind of seemed genuine on the critical points and then just deceptive on everything else. But yeah, he might not be involved at all. He may or may not know about other involvement if there are law enforcement officials or government officials involved in this ring, if it is a ring. If it's not, and one or two of these guys acted without a ring, I mean, that that doesn't mean that other people don't know. So clearly, there's a lot of overlap here, unless it was some kind of stranger, outsider, possible trucker or whatever that has no ties to the area, and there just happened to be a lot of these scumbags around engaged in illegal activities, and they didn't perpetrate this crime, but they just happened to be involved in all these other situations. So, yeah, let's not fall for any black and white logical fallacies here. Hope you guys found another edition of Mindshock True Crime interesting. If you want to help support the channel, help us get more mind-shocking content out there and keep up awareness in cold cases, unsolved cases, missing persons cases, wrongful convictions, you can donate to a PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Like and share the podcast. Make sure you're subscribed. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get a priority for case topological analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.
If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and you are listening to the Delphi Murders Case Series. This is episode 30, The Klein Leaks. So, Barbara McDonald's jailhouse interview with Keegan Klein, the full interview text has been leaked. Now, I don't even know if leaked is technically the right word, because the documents showed up on Indiana's court website. So, I mean, unless someone did that on purpose, either way, they became publicly available. I don't know if they're still there, but of course, it's all over online now. So I don't know if that technically classifies as a leak or whatnot. But either way, we'll be going over Keegan Klein's interview. In the previous episode, we went over, obviously, the available video in the interview to kind of gauge his mannerisms and deduce what he has said. Personally, I found him relatively credible, with the only intense deception regarding saying he never tried to meet anybody he spoke to online. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean he was deceptive, but as for the most part, he did seem, unless he was a sociopath, of course. If he's a sociopath, it all means nothing, and he could still be guilty, but I am not alleging he's guilty or innocent. This is Mindshock, where the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. If you enjoy the podcast, find it interesting, want to help spread awareness and logic and reason in true crime case examinations, you can help support Mindshock by donating to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, make sure you allow notifications to come through, or you can just go to youtube.com/Mindshock to see the latest episodes there as they are released. You can also support the channel by becoming a YouTube member right here on YouTube for exclusive access to chats and streams. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast, or requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. So let's jump right into it. So it stated it was filed March 3rd, 2022, so 3:13 p.m. by Clerk, Miami County, Indiana. So again, is this an official leak or is it simply just a release? Who knows? This is State of Indiana, County of Miami, State of Indiana versus Keegan Klein. They have the attorneys listed here. Videotaped interview of Keegan A. Klein by Barbara McDonald on December 9th, 2021. Huh. So here we're going through it. Interview and questioning by Barbara McDonald. Keegan. It says Keegan Kern here. I'm assuming that means Klein. Is a typo in the official paperwork here. Hello, Barbara McDonald. Hi, Keegan. How are you? I'm good. How are you? I'm okay. My name is Barbara. We haven't met. Yeah, I didn't know your name. Do you realize your name indiscernible? Yeah, can I hear you? Oh, okay. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, it blacked real bad. I couldn't hear you for inaudible. Oh, so are you aware there's a bunch of news stories out there linking you to the Delphi murders? Yeah, I saw that on the news. And how do you feel about that? I feel like I'm being harassed completely. Did you have anything to do with the murders? No. Of Abby or Libby? Not at all, and I've gave up my DNA, a hair follicle test. I've done everything they wanted me to. Where were you on February 13th, 2017? I was at my house. They have my GPS locations and everything. And you were in Peru, Indiana? Yeah. Okay. Inaudible that you created this fake Anthony Schatz, is that correct? Yeah. So Anthony Schatz was communicating with Libby. That's what they inaudible. I'm assuming that means said. Was that you? That's what they said. Was that you? No, not that I remember, but that's what they're saying. So you may have been communicating with Libby, but maybe not. Right. And were you ever trying to meet these girls in real life? No, that you were talking to. No, never. So you were just asking for images. Right. And talk inaudible. Right. Did that cut out? Yeah, it's been cutting out. Okay, sorry. Oh, you're fine. So do you remember the night of the 13th, the night that the girls went missing, do you remember communicating with Kelsey German? No, I do not. Has anyone else had access to this Anthony Schatz login? I mean, information. I lived with my dad, but I don't know. Do you think your dad could have been accessing that profile? Yeah, I do. Okay, so we're in firm Mindshock territory right now. So Keegan Klein is basically not only saying that it's a theoretical possibility, but specifically he says, yes, he does think that his dad could have been accessing the profile, as opposed to saying, no, my dad would never do that. He would just never do that. And his dad is older too, so I don't know that many. Is this Instagram only, other social media accounts? I mean, how many people of Tony Klein's age are well versed in this kind of social media to the point where they could just hijack it? I mean, I don't mean posting photos or whatever, just basic utilization, but, to be used for catfishing or using other people's accounts, whatever. Anyway, back to Barbara McDonald's question here. Do you think your dad could be involved in no? What happened to Abby and Libby? No, because I was with him that day. So you were, so not that, wow, interesting. Not that he's not the type of person to do it, but that he couldn't have done it because he was with him. So you were both at home in Peru, Indiana. Yeah, I lived with him. Okay, yeah. So you know that he didn't have anything to do with the murders. Right. But you think he might have been using the profile to talk to girls. Yeah, that's the only other person because he lived there. You know what I mean? So you guys had all access to the same indiscernible electronic items? Right? Yeah. So in the search warrant or the probable cause affidavit for the arrest for the charges that you are facing right now, right, it says you had turned over a bunch of electronics when they first searched your home. Right. And when you did that search warrant on your home, did you know that that was regarding Abby and Libby's case? No. No, they would not show me anything. I didn't even see the search warrant still to this day. Really? Yeah, on both times I've been, because that happened in 2017, and then when I was arrested for these charges in August 19th, 2020, they still never showed me a search warrant. Wow, so you didn't know then what the search warrant, which case that was about, or whether this was about Inaudible. No, I had no clue. I asked them, hey, what is this for? And they told me to shut the hell up and get in the car. Okay, I mean, that's an interesting way to conduct police business, if that's accurate. And so, are you aware whether you may have been... are you aware whether you may have talked to Libby on the 13th? That's what they said. That's what the police tell me. That you did, yeah. And do you have any recollection of that? No, not at all. And I've told them 100 times. I've done everything they wanted me to, and it's like they're just harassing me. So you were surprised that all of this came out this week. Oh, yeah, they told me they were going to put out something, and I said, that's fine with me. I don't care, I'm innocent, so you can put out whatever you want. And I have a friend in Texas that's texting me and telling me, hey, you're on the news here. Yeah, now it's all over. Yeah, it's national news. Right. Have you talked to any other reporters? No, I have not. Do you have any interview requests? I mean, I'm open to anything, but no. Okay, so have you been cooperating with the investigators? Yeah, 100%, anything they asked me to. And when was the last time you talked to any of these investigators? That would have been Monday. They came to the jail on Monday. So what did they want from you on Monday? A polygraph test. And what did you say? I said, yeah. And they jogged me around for over an hour, and my lawyer was in there, and I told him, hey, like 3 or 4 times, give me the polygraph test, and he won't. He didn't. He kept saying, no, I got more stuff to ask you. So you've never been polygraphed. I have one time when it happened, because immediately I was like, well, give me a polygraph test, a DNA, whatever you want, and yeah, a hair follicle test. Okay, so what kind of things have these investigators been talking to you about? About my case here and then my involvement with the Delphi. Okay, yeah. And have you been to Delphi? No. I was in Delphi in high school for a football game, but that's the only time I've ever been to Delphi. It'd be interesting if that witness that saw the guy at the CPS building or near the road somewhere around the CPS building that said he was waiting for his dad, if they would identify him. That would be curious. I don't know if that witness has ever been contacted in regards to this. I mean, you would think in a thorough investigation, maybe they did, and maybe it's all known, and this is just something that hasn't been released. But anyway, this is what Keegan is saying, that he was only in Delphi one time in high school for a football game. Have you been out to the Monon High Bridge? I have no clue where that even is. I couldn't even tell you how to get to Delphi. So why do you think investigators are putting so much focus on you right now? I have not a clue, because I think it's because they said I was the last person to talk to her, is what they've told me. Oh, and then she shows up at the bridge and they're abducted and later found dead. Right. And that was not you? No. 100% no. They have my GPS the whole day. And how do they have your GPS for the whole day? From your phone? Well, from my phone, yeah. Okay. They can, I don't know how they do it, but yeah, indiscernible. And he's shown me that day all my GPS locations, you know what I mean? And none of them were in Delphi. No, not even close. Now, of course, is there a way to prove he had his own phone, though? I mean, you know, if you're building a solid case here. Do you think investigators are thinking that your dad could be involved in the murders? Well, I know about 2 Fridays ago, or it was, yeah, I think it was 3 Fridays ago, they raided him, and I'm not sure what it was about, or what about on the news. I saw them show the house, and then his neighbor talked to the police and said, or talked to the reporter and said that he was raided. But I've tried to contact him. He won't contact me back, so I don't know. Huh, interesting. So this does not look good for Tony Klein, because if Tony Klein is 100% innocent and Keegan Klein is 100% innocent, would he refuse to contact him unless his dad really didn't know what he was up to with these social media accounts? Now that he knows, he doesn't want to have anything to do with his son. I mean, I suppose that's a possibility as well, if he's on the up and up. Or maybe even not. I mean, who's to say that some of these criminal scumbags are not hypocritical? They might think it's okay for them to do stuff, but not anybody else. Again, these are the minds of criminals. It's kind of hard to deduce for certain these types of things. So what is your relationship like in Audible today? We, today with my dad, where we don't talk at all. Why is that? I don't know. Up until 2-3 weeks ago, he would talk to me every day. Okay, so there's that. Come out and view me at the visit or have a visit with me all the time. Uh-huh. Few times a week. He'd put money on my books. I mean, we would talk every day almost. And so he's been sort of ghosting you then since, yep, the last, 2 weeks? Yeah, since the raid on the house. Yeah. Okay, so it doesn't sound like he abandoned his son for these charges. Now, again, that doesn't necessarily, if he's a good guy also, there are people that would not abandon their children regardless of what they did. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, this is some interesting information, of course. Does that sound to you like he's scared? I would think, because I have no reason why he wouldn't talk to me, you know what I mean? I'm his only child. I mean, we had a great relationship. Do you think he's the type of person who could have killed these girls? I don't think so, because I was with him, you know what I mean? So I know it wasn't him. But in the past, he's beaten up his ex-wife. I mean, he's held guns to us as when we were kids, you know what I mean? Like, he's not really a great person, you know what I mean? Wow. So, yeah, this is kind of weird, because is Keegan Klein, like, holding out a lifeline here regarding his father, where he doesn't want to directly implicate him in anything? Or is he just truly being honest about just about everything? Where his father might be the type of person, but because he was with him at the house all day, just physically he knows he couldn't have done this. He also is revealing here that he held guns to his ex-wife and Keegan himself when he was a kid. That's kind of weird. Barbara asks, so he's been violent? Yeah. Definitely, yeah. Can I ask you, do you know who Ron Logan is? No, I don't. Ron Logan is the property owner where the girls' bodies were found out by the bridge. Oh, okay. Do you know if your father knows him? I have no clue. I've never heard that name before. Interesting. So has your father ever stopped communicating with you before this? No. When I got arrested in August 19th, 2020, he didn't talk to me for about 5 months. And then just one day, I think it was April, he just started talking to me again. But yeah, I mean, my whole life, we've always had a great relationship my whole life. Besides when I was a kid, you know. So that's kind of weird. So when he first got arrested, his father did abandon him for 5 months. Huh. Again, normal human psychology, he could have just been really upset with his son, and then, or if he is guilty, he could have been worried that his son might say something, and then when he didn't, after 5 whole months, he decided to talk to him again. There's really no way to draw any kind of conclusion from these statements thus far. So, what do you mean besides when you were a kid? Indiscernible. Was he abusive? Yeah, real bad. In what way? Physical and emotional. A lot. Pretty much emotional my whole life. So tell me about the 13th. What were you guys doing all day that you know for sure he was with you the whole day? Well, he doesn't work on Monday, Saturday, and Monday or Sunday. And Mondays, so we would always just hang out at the house, go to my grandparents. But I remember that day we watched a wrestling pay-per-view that night. And he was at my grandparents with me around 5 and 6, and then the rest of the night. But he usually sleeps, because he works third shift. So he normally sleeps until about 1 or 2, and then we wake up, get lunch, stuff like that. Okay, and so you know that he was with you from 1 or 2 Monday the 13th. Right. Throughout the evening. Right, yeah. So how do you reconcile this in your head, this focus on you? I have no clue. I've asked them. I'm like, what else do you want me to do? You know what I mean? And it's like they're harassing me. They will not stop. It's like I've done everything they want. They've went through all my phones. They know everything about me. They've talked to people that I know. You know what I mean? It's like they will not stop. But you inaudibly involved in child pornography, the charges against me, yeah. So, and one of these inaudible trying to solicit a child to meet you for sex. Answer, that's what they said, but the evidence in my thing doesn't show anything like that. Okay, but maybe somebody else was using that profile and trying to do that. Right. But your dad would be the only other person who would have access to the profile. Yes. What would you like to ask your father right now? Really, I just texted him the other day and just asked, why are you believing everyone over your own son? You know what I mean? I don't get, I'm his only son and daughter. That's kind of a weird thing to say. I'm an only child. It's like, why are you just giving up on me over nothing? Well, I mean, it's not over nothing, but why we were fine 2 weeks ago and they raid you and it's like, now you're not going to talk to me. Perhaps his father thought that Keegan really dropped the dime on him at this point and pointed the finger at him, which was the cause for the raid. If that's what his father thinks, then perhaps that's why he wouldn't return contact. Do you remember who the investigators were that came to talk to you? It was one you mean last week, yeah? He gives this trooper's name. Okay, yeah. And so he was by himself and he came and saw you on Monday, yeah. And then they said they're going to release something, right? Yeah. Were they going to get something from you that day? Yeah, because I was supposed to do a polygraph test that day. And you said you agreed, but yeah, then they didn't follow through. 3 or 4 times I said, are you going to do it? And he just keeps dragging it on and dragging it on. I told him, hey, I'll do it right now. Just give me the polygraph test. And he wouldn't. And then they take 3 guys out of my cell block down there to ask them questions about me that night. Do you know what they said? I don't know. I'm not sure. Have you followed the case of Abby and Libby at all? No, not really. Since it happened? No. What do you want people to know about you? That I'm innocent of this, and I would love to find out who did it. That's 2 kids that died, you know what I mean? And I just want them to know it's not me, and I've gave everything to the state police that they've asked. Everything. There was, when they collected your electronics back in 2017? Yeah, they took all your inaudible, yeah. And one phone, you said you found a few days later, and you called them and you said, I have this? It was immediately after I got home. They did a whole interview with me and then they took me home. An officer did. And it was right on the counter. And I was like, what the hell? So I called them immediately from my dad's phone and told them, hey, there's a phone you guys didn't get. They came the next day and got it. Wow. So they didn't even come get it right then and there. So they waited until... So I'm assuming, I guess they thought that the phone would have already been scrubbed at that point. But if it hadn't, I mean, they sure took their time going to get it. But the other thing that's kind of weird here, if that's accurate, Keegan himself volunteered this extra phone. Okay, carrying on here. And you deleted some things from some of your electronics. I deleted an application, yeah. And what app was that? I think it was Kik, K-I-K. Why did you delete that app? I don't know. I really don't know. But they got me for obstruction of justice for that. There's a woman I talked to, and she said she was with Child Protective something, and I was like, if she just goes be done with it, and I was like, I'm going to delete everything, and she goes, yeah, that's fine. And so I did that, and they hit me with obstruction of justice 2 times for that, even though she said it was okay to do that. Okay, so apparently he was told it was okay first before he deleted it, if we're believing his story here. I told her, hey, this is a big wake up, you know what I mean? And so your attorney, Inaudible, yeah, that's what he's telling you about what's going on. Yeah. Well, see, he's not my attorney for Delphi. The Delphi case, so he can't really talk to me about it. Oh. So I have no legal representation or nothing. So you don't have a lawyer with you when you're talking to them. No, I did that last time. He sat in, but like he told me before, I'm not your lawyer for this, so I'm just going to sit here. Oh, wow. Yeah. Wait, is this... Whoa, this is kind of weird, though. Is that... Wow, that's really messed up, though, because if someone waives their right to a lawyer, that's one thing, but to have a lawyer for a different case sitting in and not give him an actual... Isn't he entitled to a lawyer? I mean, this case is going to get botched up if this is this weird. I mean, I guess it's already botched up, but... So you feel like you're pegged for this murder? Yeah. Do you? And they've contacted my whole family, all my friends, and now no one talks to me anymore because of this. They all think I'm some terrible person or something. Well, I mean, you were committing crimes, right? Against children, right? You were asking them to send you inappropriate images, correct? Right, yeah. So, I mean, you were doing some things wrong, right? But you draw the line at you never met these girls. Yeah, never. After this happened, did your father follow the case at all, do you know? Not that I know of. Tell me about Anthony Shots. Why did you create that profile? I don't really know. I was just lonely, you know what I mean? Just talking to people. I don't really know why I did it, really. Where does the name come from? My middle name is Anthony. Inaudible on your profile. Were they true? Did you own a marijuana delivery business at one point? Yes, I did. Inaudible, you did? Yeah, in Las Vegas, yes. Okay, and what years was that operating? 2017 to 2018. So when did you move out to Las Vegas? Like June of 2017. Okay, and you worked as a casino dealer out in Vegas as well? No, I didn't. Okay, and what about armed security guard? Did you ever do that? No, but I worked, well, not really. No, so no. But I did help one of my friends. I was a bounty hunter out there. But no, I wouldn't say that. I didn't pay taxes or anything for it, so. Okay. You know what I mean? Technically it wasn't a job. So you weren't like licensed or anything as a bounty hunter. No. Okay, were you carrying a weapon? Yeah. Okay, I wasn't expecting to hear any of this from you. I'm surprised you don't have an attorney representing you on these charges. Yeah. So there's a podcast that's been released where one of your friends supposedly talked to a podcast host and said you were into all kinds of dark things. You were out on the dark web. Is that true? No. Dark things? What? Inaudible. Well, I mean, you know, to some people, child pornography would be a dark thing. Yeah, I didn't discuss any of that with any of my friends or nothing like that. Okay, so, but was that something you and your father both shared? You knew about him. He knew that about you? I wouldn't say that he knew that about me. I wouldn't, because he told the officers that he didn't know, so I don't know. How long have you known... Okay. Something inaudible into child pornography, right. And it's kind of unclear... Okay, so it might have been asking him if his father is into that. How long have you known that about your father? I mean, I can remember being around 20 years old and him having sex with one of my friends that was underage. I was about 19. I'd say that she was about 17. You know what's kind of weird, though, if he's not 100% sure if she was 17 or 18, not that that would make it that much better, but it's just kind of weird. Yeah, he's a grown man. He's in his 40s probably by then. Do you know what age he prefers? No, I do not know. But he likes young women, right. And he's been violent with some of these women. Yeah, his ex-wife, yeah. He's been to jail over beating her up, yeah. And does he have any substance abuse problems? I mean, I know he takes prescription pills. I'm not sure if he's abusing them or not. I don't know. Does he drink alcohol or use any drugs? Not anymore, but I know he used to, yeah. Okay, so I mean, did you first find out that your name was out there? Was that yesterday or the day before? It would have been Tuesday night at 7 on the news. It was what opened the news was my face and them talking about me. And what went through your mind when you saw that? That's crazy. They're putting this out there because they've done this to a few other people with the Delphi case, put their face out in the news and everything. So you think you're just the latest target. Right. How much did you weigh February 2017, do you recall? How much did I would say 300, 310 maybe. And how tall are you? I'm like 5'11", 6 foot. And how tall is your father? About the same height. And what is his weight? Do you know? Now I would say I'm not sure, 280 maybe. Okay, yeah. And I mean, I know you say he was with you that day, but would your father be capable of going out, walking the bridge, and killing 2 girls? Would he physically be capable of doing that? Yeah. Yeah. He hunts and he's got to pull out deer, so I mean, yeah, I would think he would be capable of doing it, but yeah. But you know he was with you. Yeah. I'm worried that our clock's going to run out on our interview here pretty soon. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you want people to know? Just that I'm innocent. That's it. And do you think you're going to be charged with anything related to Abby and Libby's murder? No, I don't. So the state police haven't threatened that. No. Do you feel like they're trying to get you to pin this on your dad? Yes, I do. And that's probably why he's not speaking to you. Right, because when I first got arrested, they told me they knew it was my dad. And if I tell them, my charges will be dropped. Whoa, okay. So is this perhaps the most mind-shocking part of the interview right there? I'm going to read that answer again. When I first got arrested, they told me that they knew it was my dad, and if I tell them, my charges would be dropped. So, of course, it is relatively common for police to lie whatever they need to get their man. So that doesn't mean they knew it was him. He might have been one of many suspects, and they were just fishing because if he was the guy and Keegan admitted it, then they would solve the case. So it's not necessarily they're trying to intentionally frame somebody, but they told you that last year? Like, go, not drop, but go away, pretty much is what they said. And they told you that last year when you were arrested? Yeah, August 19th. Interesting. Yeah. I'd like to set up another interview tomorrow if that's okay with you. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so is there a time of day they make... She also asked him, are you okay with me putting this on television? Yeah, 100%. And then they're going to schedule another appointment to talk. Okay, so it's unclear how many follow-up interviews there are, if any. But there's some very interesting material in this interview. So basically he's saying his father's physically capable. His father's not that good of a guy, so he could theoretically be capable of this crime. However, he was there with him. A couple interesting posts here from the Libby and Abby subreddit. It sounds like the guy turning on his father, but stopping short of going the whole way and accusing him of murder. A couple of possible reasons for this spring to mind. Keegan Klein is just trying to muddy the waters by taking the public heat off himself and implicating his father, or he genuinely remembers being with his father at the time of the murders. You bring up a really great point here. If this is the case, though, do you think he worked with law enforcement at all when he was initially arrested, since they essentially said they could get all his charges dropped? Not sure. If we take Keegan Klein's words at face value, I suspect he hasn't, but who the heck knows for sure at this point. So it seems like if there isn't a ring here, if there is not a ring here, I mean, it's rough. It's rough. If Tony Klein acted alone. But then who is the young guy waiting for his father? I guess that could be completely unrelated. It's theoretically possible. Coincidence theorists would love for that to be the case. Keegan Klein is too fat. His father won't talk to him because he thinks he's wired up. Tony is the killer, period. Okay, so another possibility, yeah, if he thinks his son is going to be wired up to get out of his own charges. I mean, yeah, that's actually very plausible. Other posts here. Tony Klein is very likely the killer, and I think Keegan was involved, probably the getaway driver. Law enforcement working to crush their alibis, which happens to be each other. Huh. Interesting. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it is more plausible that Keegan Klein would be a driver than physically commit these acts, because he does seem just very, very passive. And I don't know, these are just impressions I'm getting. Obviously, everybody else is free to their own opinion and discernment of the available information, the body language, the intonation in the interview. And then now that we have the full text of the transcript, it's very curious. Some interesting posts here. Why did he change his Facebook to show he was Vegas on the 13th? His credibility is almost zero. You can almost see him going back and forth between the truth and lies during that interview. Doesn't want to give up his old man, but his conscience lets it slip out occasionally. And my gut tells me Keegan Anthony Klein was involved in some way too, possibly the getaway driver. Another poster here. My dad was an abuser and he threatened me with a firearm, and I know he's not capable of murder. Life can have lots of nuance. Although, to be fair, the children of plenty of serial killers have also said that their parents, either abusive or not, were not capable of murder when they demonstrably were. But, yeah. Another interesting post here by How Did You Fall? I am watching back the press conferences with Doug Carter, and when he addresses the killer/killers, it totally aligns as if talking to Keegan Anthony Klein. This document was leaked on purpose. Year one presser, Carter seems to be talking directly to Keegan Klein by repeating person responsible when referring to Bridge Guy. They wanted to encourage Keegan Anthony Klein to scrap the fake alibi. Their purpose at this conference was to comfort Keegan Anthony Klein. Quotes, it takes the strength for one individual to say, that was my brother, or that's my dad. Close your eyes and picture a family member from the neck down. You would know clothes and posture. You would know that voice. I would know if it was my father, just like you would know it's yours. End quotes. This is the year one presser. They did have him right away. They just still need that one piece. That one missing piece is Keegan's loyalty to his father, and from what he reveals, it's a complex situation. He is holding on to hope that his manipulative dad still loves him. It's all about control to you, likely encompasses all angles of Bridge Guy's life, including his kid, especially his kid. Kelsey German brought up in the new interview, I have a feeling the Emily account or Anthony Schott's account contacted Keegan Klein during the search that night because it was Tony Klein posing as one or the other, offering help or condolences, inserting themselves into the personal side of the crime for some twisted fulfillment. Maybe that's why Keegan Anthony Klein truly can't recall that, because it was his dad on the fake accounts. Anyway, okay, so that is interesting. That is very, very interesting. Some responses here. All this makes sense, except neither is really the right stature, I don't think. I don't know. It keeps changing and the video is blurred. But if they have everything they need except the alibi situation, then they could get through the alibi. That seems like something they could still arrest and convict on, not to mention once they did arrest Tony Klein, it'd be easier to get Keegan Anthony Klein to cave on the alibi. So it seems like they need more than an alibi, like maybe someone saying, I do know he did it, I picked him up, or he came home and burned clothes, threw them away, still has the murder weapon, etc. But they must have Tony Klein's DNA by now. At the very least, they have Keegan Klein's, which they could compare to crime scene DNA. This makes me think that if it is Tony Klein, they don't have much evidence. I dunno. Another response here, I think you are absolutely right. Law enforcement does not have enough hard evidence on Tony Klein. To me, this explains the wait time of the charges on Keegan. Maybe they baited him, let him go home to promote more evidence. Tech tracks, possibly a bugged house or phone line, etc. Perhaps even set up a sting to try to get him to meet young girls again. I am purely speculating. Whatever the plan, it didn't work. New approaches included the reveal of the young Bridge Guy sketch that is based off of the Anthony Schott's profile pic. That didn't give them what they wanted, and eventually the release of the Anthony Schott social media actual profile picture to generate more tips. That's how desperate they must have been for something more solid. It seems they were a last resort and were essentially reworking the lead in a vulnerable way because the profile link is the case. There is obviously a hiccup in the DNA collected at the crime scene. Whether partial or inconclusive, who knows? Would there be issues with a father-son partial profile for ID purposes? I'll have to Google how that works. You're right, stature and height don't align, but look how much is aligning with Tony and Keegan. If you go through the press conferences, he seems to literally be talking to the POIs and the circumstances between them. But yeah, they do need even more than Klein flipping on his dad, maybe in the form of the paternal grandmother. I think that's where he said they were at the night in question. Maybe Keegan Anthony Klein is still working with law enforcement, and this full interview release is part of a bigger plan to get Tony Klein to budge. It's still very much a mystery, and all of the above is just totally my thoughts out loud. What matters the most is justice for Libby and Abby. I hope it comes soon. Okay, some people are tearing apart his pro wrestling alibi here. So the pay-per-view event was on Sunday, February 12th, 2017. And there is a Pro Wrestling Monday Night Raw event on February 13th, but it's not pay-per-view. So did he get confused whether it was pay-per-view, not pay-per-view? Who knows? But Monday Night Raw starts at 8 p.m. Another interesting post here. WWE pay-per-views since 2014 air online on the WWE network, just like Netflix. He could have been watching a replay. His internet history should prove if he was watching the WWE network or not. Unless for some reason he bought the pay-per-view, $40, on cable satellite instead of free online on the WWE network subscription, which is $10 a month. Yeah, I mean, you would think that would be verified as well. Also, regarding the name Shots, apparently there's other individuals with that last name in his neighborhood, and possibly connected to also other individuals with criminal offenses. So, yeah, I mean, it is curious why he chose that name. Another interesting post here. I can envision Bridge Guy as being Keegan Klein's father, and it's very common for adult children of abusive parents to feel afraid of them. So I think Keegan was simultaneously trying to protect his father, but also throw out some kernels of the abuse his father committed and is capable of the crime. I think it is just a matter of time before Klein is taken in. Very interesting that they asked about contact with Kelsey. I would venture to guess that the family has known all along, and I do feel so sad for them. I think the father looks a lot like the man in the video and a closer match to the original sketch than the younger sketch. For all we know, both the father and son are responsible for the murders. That would be really wild, though, if they did know from basically day one who the guy, which is what people were speculating. Now, what's missing, though? Because that is curious. Normally, when they know who did it, I mean, and if the cops have been watching his house and following him day in, day out since day one, then I guess they could say he's not a danger to the community. Because, and would Kelsey German say there's no threat because the police have 12 cop cars on him at all times? Is that why she said there's no threat? But how could all these individuals keep this up unless, I mean, we don't know what the cops told Kelsey either, but apparently somebody did contact Kelsey German because this was a question asked here. So another post here. My first assessment is that Keegan Klein doesn't seem very smart. I doubt he knows about his father's involvement in this crime. He contradicts himself several times and gets details wrong. He claims that he and his father had a great relationship his whole life, except when he was a kid and when he was being abused physically and emotionally. And Tony beat up his ex-wife, held a gun to them. When I got arrested in August 19th, 2020, he didn't talk to me for about 5 months, and then just one day, I think it was in April, he just started talking to me again. Now, this is, of course, 8 months. But again, that doesn't mean he's dumb. I mean, I'm not saying he's not dumb, but people that don't pay attention to those kind of details, like there's some really intelligent people who simply just, when they talk fast or they're a little nervous, they're not going to calculate those months perfectly. But anyway, Tony Klein used his son in the statutory rape situation Keegan describes. TK had sex with one of Keegan's friends when she was about 17 and he was in his 40s probably by then. The details of the ages are probably incorrect. The girl could have been younger than 17. Or older, I mean, we don't know. The alibi is not solid at all. The pay-per-view event was likely on Sunday, so TK is possibly unaccounted for until he was at my grandparents' with me around 5 or 6 and the rest of the evening. The history of using his son to find sexual interest for himself, the weak alibi Keegan provides for his father, and TK's history of violence all point to someone who definitely needs to be looked into further. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to say what's going on with Keegan's answers. They're all over the place. But if the real alibi is from 5 or 6 onward, and he just assumed his father was sleeping the rest of the time or whatever, I mean, did he actually go, like, what's the layout of the house? Did he actually physically see his father sleeping? Also, someone posted this. The age of consent in Indiana is 16. That's weird. Okay. So is that why Okay, so yeah, okay. Apparently, he was also stalking his ex's 11-year-old daughter. That's messed up. A few more posts here, just exposing some of Klein's lies here. On his Facebook page, February 12th, 2017, 11 p.m., he put that he started a job in Vegas at a casino as a table games dealer. Clearly a lie because he was with his father the next day at his grandparents' house. He admits in the full Barbara interview he moved to Vegas in June 2017 and admits he never was a casino dealer. So many contradictory things. Either he is covering for his dad and that is all about to crumble, or possibly his dad may have had access to Keegan's Facebook and made this elaborate story and told Keegan to go with it. We know his dad played along with the lies because there were many posts on Facebook about how Keegan had gone in Vegas and he hasn't seen him in 2 years and such. Someone in the family is definitely hiding something. Some responses. What's weird, though, is law enforcement have known about these two for 5 years. I feel like if it were one of them, they should have been able to bust them by now. Another response here. Biggest issue, I think, is that it took them almost 2 years to figure out that these two clowns were lying to them. The clients have had a long time to get their story straight. I think they will eventually cave in, but some lost opportunities at the beginning. Another response, I'm sure they were just building a case on them and trying to track down the people that Keegan was selling materials to. The fact that this case was allowed to be backburnered while they were working on the Delphi case shows me that it has nothing to do with the Delphi case. It just came up in the investigation of Delphi. Then, when a reporter was going to break the story of the Klein case, law enforcement made their strange middle-of-the-night announcement to get ahead of it. I don't read too much into the fact that they put Abby and Libby tip line number on the Anthony Shots info request. It's an already established resource that could get the information to the people that are working on the Anthony Shots Keegan Klein case. Yeah, that's an interesting aspect too. If these guys do have nothing to do with Libby and Abby's murders, and law enforcement are simply piggybacking as much as they can to solve as many cases as possible, I mean, I guess that's possible. Another response here, I don't think they're the actual killers, but I think he was involved with the girls via the fake account, knew that he would be linked, panicked, and made some BS Facebook posts. He doesn't seem very intelligent, and it is a very simple way of thinking. So yeah, definitely some curiosities here. In terms of, there's also some conversation of how these two tie in with, let's say, Garrett Kurtz, or Ashley Garth and some of these other drug-dealing individuals. Do Keegan and Tony Klein seem like bloodthirsty killers that people would be afraid of? I mean, I don't know. Perhaps there's things we don't know about them, but does it seem like all these individuals would be really, really afraid of rolling on the Kleins if it was just the Kleins? Unless if the Kleins were involved with other individuals who were much scarier than the Kleins, then they obviously can't give up the Kleins either because of the other individuals. So it's still really impossible to say for certain how many individuals could be involved here and how many other criminals involved in other crimes, drugs and otherwise, could overlap into this case. But as always, hope you guys enjoyed another edition of Mindshock True Crime. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. Become a YouTube member. Get access to exclusive streams and chats. Like and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind. Leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.